IHP with JC, the rest of the IHP staff. We've been gone for quite a while. JC was in Japan for like 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Then I don't even know, you were all over South America, but you've been back for a while now.
Dubai, China, Costa Rica, Lima, Peru, Bogota, some other places, Cincinnati, and yeah, now we're heading to Vegas.
Now we're back for a little bit. So, but we wanted to get going on JC Unplugged again, so here we are on episode 5 for 2017. Just going to go right into the questions like we normally do. First question, what is the pathology of tennis elbow, and what are some of the better rehab exercises for it?
Well, pathology. See, I'm not a doctor. The pathology for tennis elbow is it hurts. And it hurts specifically in the elbow. Now, tennis elbow. Well, usually that's what they would call medial condylitis, which is here. Bang. That can come, that normally comes, anything in the elbow normally comes because of the wrist. You'll see that same thing in serving. If they serve and they let's say they're protecting here and they're trying to get the racket back using the wrist, it'll flare up here. Same thing with forehand if there's a lot of wrist. So the itis is an inflammation, and usually these inflammations are because of wear and tear or too much load on the structure. Okay? First thing that has to happen is is there something wrong? Is there a tear in the tendon? Is there something architecturally wrong in the structure? And barring anything wrong, just an itis, okay, that's a big assumption, then you have to look at why is this thing getting irritated? Why is there overload on the flexors of the wrist? You can get the flexors of the wrist stronger. You can get the rotators of the cuff stronger. And all these little segments and different joints, you can get them stronger. But the question is, how strong can you make the flexors? How strong can you make the rotator cuffs? How strong can you make the rotators of the hips? And if the muscle is as big as your finger, you're never going to make it as big as your palm. So next question is it not working good in the chain? Is there something going on in the chain? So for example, let's say tennis. If the tennis elbow is being caused by your stroke, number one, work on stroke mechanics, but that's not our job. My thing is loading mechanism. How can I make this thing stronger with less risk? And my thing is, okay, how does the body load here? Well, it loads with this here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work this posterior serratus from right hammy, right glute, left lat. Right off the bat, I'm going to work on this loading mechanism, so my hand can just go for the ride and let my core, my big muscles, generate the power. Along with that, I'm going to work on the anterior serratus, which is horizontal this way, serratus external, internal obliques, and hip flexors to help that posterior. So I'm going to go posterior, anterior, so the body can turn. Bam! So some of the exercises that we'll be doing is using different levers, different stances, and doing your pressing and your pulling unilaterally so you can get those diagonals. So that's my long-winded answer to that. I would make sure that I don't have a structural problem at the joint, and if you remove that, then is the joint not working with the big joints? And then teach you how to work with the big joints, and hopefully that'll allow it to have less involvement in something that is too involved.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 2. I'm just going to read this as is, and we can talk it through. The best functional hypertrophy program you can think of. Build muscle, lose fat, and keep the body injury free. So I think kind of like the oxymoron is functional hypertrophy there. But what's your best let's just take the word functional out. What's your best hypertrophy program? Let's start there.
The best hypertrophy programs are bodybuilding programs. They're all bodybuilding related. Now, you can, I think this was asked in a previous, because I just saw an episode that I came across, I don't know why, and I looked, and somebody asked, what's my favorite hypertrophy protocol? Jesus, there's so many. You have pyramid and inverse pyramids, breakdown sets, giant sets, pre-fatigue sets, agonist, antagonist. There's a lot. So the question becomes, which would be my favorite? it would have to be the one, for example, that hurts me the least, the one that I can do. Right now, I have bad knees. I have one knee that's really, really swollen. So we're looking at experimenting with some landmine squats, some different types of squatting that vertically won't load, especially at the shoulder, in case we have people with low back problems. So now let's say I have somebody with a low back problem and they want to get hypertrophy in the legs and the hips. What's my favorite there? Well, squatting is not going to be part of my favorite program because they can't load it that way. What if you're like me, you have arthritic knees? Well, now lunging and step-ups can't be part of it because I can't knee flex very much. So now I got to start looking for esoteric types of exercises that can really load me in a manner in which I can't further injure my body. So the best, there's no such thing. I like pretty much the 10 to 15 sets per body part per week in the 8 to 15 range. What exercises? Exercises don't hurt, exercises that I can rock and roll. Time under tension is always a good thing. Why? I'm not a huge fan of time under tension per se. What time under tension allows me to do is overwork the muscle without killing the joint. Why? Because you need less weight. So if I'm doing military presses with 135 pounds with a bar and 245s on each side, and I go really slow, I can burn the shoulders. If I'm going fast, I can get 20 reps and nothing happens. But then what happens? In order for me to load my shoulders, I gotta go to 150, 175 to go fast. Now my shoulders are seeing that 175. If my shoulders have problems, they're not gonna be happy. So how do I make my shoulders happy? Slow the thing down, put 135 on them, and my shoulders say, oh, that I can handle. So the time under tension, especially if you've got issues with joints, is always a great hypertrophy. 3 up, 3 down, 2 hold, and we were working on the 2 hold at the bottom on a squat, and that'll make a difference, man. 3 seconds down, 2 hold at the bottom, 3 seconds up, 5 reps, and you're fried. You're fried with nothing, with no loading. So,
Okay.
sorry I couldn't give you,
Yo,
three exercises and 3 times 10.
Follow-up question, would you also throw in isometrics in there, and where would you throw in isometrics?
Great question. Would I use isometrics? Absolutely. A lot of times, the pain will be in a range of right there. Like right there, when I move through that range, it hurts. But I can get to that range right here and then do this. And now I can hold it. I can hold it. So 2 things when you're injured. This is not a hypertrophy question. This is more of an injury question. When do I like isometrics? Of course, what I'm gonna say applies to everybody. But I use it more for injured individuals. Let's say that here's a range of motion, and then all of a sudden, there's your range. And this, getting from here to here is what hurts, all right? I can get right here in this isometric, hold it, and it won't hurt. Because for some reason is when the joint glides from here to here is where I'm getting the pain. But at no given point can I just hold and put load, and it'll hurt. There's ranges that I can get that it won't hurt. Now, isometric gives you strength 10 degrees, 5 on each side. Once I get 5 on each side, now I got 10 degrees of motion, then I start doing partials. I've got a situation with my shoulder right now where right there, it hurts. So I take my cable right from here, and I go like this. And I go like this with my hand. And I gotta kind of hold the cable until my shoulder kind of clicks in. Once it clicks in, I can let it go, and I just go in here for 20. Short range of motion. And that started with an isometric. Now I'm getting this much. All right? Now I can get hypertrophy on my shoulders without doing laterals. Using initially a isometric lateral and now a partial range of motion lateral. So use that when full ranges of motion are not given to you, usually because of injury.
all right. This kind of maybe fits that same question. What are your favorite traditional strength exercises for each movement, like level change, locomotion, push-pull, rotation? And what are your favorite functional exercises for each movement?
For the legs, I'm actually digging the deadlift a lot more than the squat now, from a functional standpoint, because most people lift rather than just squat with stuff on their shoulders. So I'm digging the deadlift and variations of the deadlift, which is one of the reasons that we were looking at the landmines squat, which we maybe even feature it in an Unplugged. Anything that kills that vertical loading and spares the lower back. Not that we're scared of the squat. I like the squat. Squat remains a good one. But I like variations. I like the deadlifting and variations of the deadlift. I like hip-loaded squatting. I love car pushing. That's an alternative to a squat, especially for locomotion, for speed, anything like that. Car pushing, sled pushing are awesome. I'm digging huge leg pressing. I'm becoming a fan of leg pressing. Because you can tire out the legs without, without any major crazy stuff. Volleyball players, they don't need to be able to squat. They need strong legs. They never carry anybody. A wrestler, differently. So deadlifting and a squat is more appropriate for a wrestler because he is carrying people and he does have them on his back at times. How many people do that? Not many. So when you're strengthening the legs of a basketball player, I think the leg press got a bad rap, and for some reason, and now I'm digging it. And single leg pressing, the single leg press helped me learn the single leg squat. Okay? So if it wouldn't have been for the Body Master 45-degree incline leg press, I would have never been able to single leg squat, ever. That's the exercise that took me to single leg. So you can use machines to get the function. Ultimately, there's no better stuff than body weight, anterior reaches, contralateral, and single leg squat. You can train the body really, really, really hard with minimal loads and be very specific to the 7 frame that you need in human locomotion and single leg jumping. So I like the squats. I like deadlifts more than the squat. I like my leg pressing, and I like my anterior reaches and single leg. Those remain my go-to. And for locomotion and strong legs, sledding and car pushes. Those are go-to exercises here.
Push and pull and your functional push-pull.
I'm a big push-up guy. Single arm push-ups, crossover push-ups. Of course, we do a lot, and I'm experimenting now with different band pressing, because this position here, whether it's here, is very functional in sports, and it's even functional around the house if you got to push a refrigerator back in, you pull it out, clean behind it, whatever. You move a sofa to get behind it to plug in. You got to push that stuff back. So the pushing position from the standing environment is huge. So we do a lot of cable presses. Bench pressing, shoulder pressing, man, remain stable. If you're going dumbbell, I like the single arm dumbbell shoulder press because very few, especially if you're using a lot of weight, you got to vertically load this. And to vertically load here, if you're using 80s, that hurts. And you can't do that because they'll fall down. But you can get this, watch. There, so you can, and now you can handle 50, 60, 70 pounds for 4 or 5, get really strong, hammer the deltoids, and the core is unbelievable. So single arm overhead presses remain one of my favorite, but I love the machine variations. Bench pressing is cool, I don't do much of it, but from a functional standpoint, the push-ups and single arm pressing and rowing is awesome.
Okay, good. All right, what are some good exercises for pool rehab, rehabbing the shoulders of the pool? Good exercises in the pool to rehab the shoulders.
Yeah, just shoulder movement. You don't have to get all scientific. What does the shoulder do? This, that, and that. So give me all the exercises you do and do them in the pool. So if you're doing bench presses, you get those little floaty dumbbells and you're pushing your pull. If you're doing flies, you're doing flies. If you're doing real lats, well, once you're in the pool, once you do a fly, then you're doing a real rear lat there. And then you're circumventing and, circles and stuff like that. Easy, don't go crazy. You're certainly not gonna do internal, external rotation the way you're taught with a little rubber band. But all the other big movements, awesome.
Nothing to reinvent the wheel.
Nothing. Everybody wants new stuff. So the best stuff we have is the old stuff. So I'm not reinventing anything just to entertain people.
I think you kind of hinted upon this just a few minutes ago, but your best hip hinge exercise and why you prefer that.
Best hip hinging right now is that low cable compound, or compound row or deadlift. This one here from a lower orientation. The physics on that, the biomechanics on that are exquisite. They're just super, super awesome. It is an exercise that, you're here at the top, right? There's your pull, there's your hand, right? Of course, things being pulled this way, all right? Now, once variable resistance. Here, as you can see, right, big stretch on the band, big load. So it starts loading when you're at terminal hip extension, which is when you're the strongest, all right? And it gives you the maximum vertical component here. Look at the, see, look at the triangle. This area here, well, the triangle is huge. But look at what happens when, with the triangle, what happens here. You get more traction. So at the bottom, if this was a good morning, if this was a deadlift, this is when the back would be at its most dangerous spot, okay? And when the glutes and the hamstrings would be most loaded. The vertical component would be huge. Here, the vertical component almost disappears. Look at this. Almost disappears, right? So what happens is you get traction while your hamstring and glutes are being really, really stretched at a huge load, okay? If you're using a band when you're here, it reduces the load. So when you're dangerous and at the most vulnerable position, it reduces the load. When you're the strongest, it increases the load. Variable resistance, like with the kineses or the band, you can use that. If you're just using a cable, no big deal. The lever system alone will reduce the load. So at the top, you get maximum vertical loading, which is not much, nothing compared to this, all right? And at the bottom, you get maximum glute and hamstring activation with spinal traction. So if you got a disc issue, the body loves that. So this is my favorite hinging exercise right now. And a close second would be the 45-degree bench. So your body's here. Sorry. Floor, boom. And now your rolls are here, right? So your feet are here. Okay? There you go. So there's your pad. Your pads are here. There's another roll there. That's my second one. You lock these things in place, no problem. Lower the pad. The biggest mistake is that the pad is used too high. Get it way low here, so the hip can hinge. Say, look at the wall, eyes on the wall at all times, okay? Big chest, and then you can even palpate the hips and make them turn and say, release this, release this, release this, release that, and make them hip hinge. And you can start with just 5 degrees. And in bad situations, isometric. Just isometric there for 30 seconds. Beautiful.
All right, so we got one more here, Carlos. This one talks about, it's from Peru, so I'm trying to understand here. I guess just training and how you deal with human emotions in training. It's kind of the essence of the question.
Is it in Spanish or in English?
It's in English.
Read it as
how it involves training in human emotions doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to guess that. Talk a little bit about when we deal with clients and their emotions that come into play. Maybe they're having a good day, a bad day, how that affects training, how that maybe even affects 1RM reps, but I guess just more human emotions.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the new component of IHP training, which is the coaching, and the spiritual component, the spiritual evolution of physical training, okay? We already know that performance increases by factors that are not even measurable physiologically. So if you can have people that take 2 minutes off of a 5K, go from 27 to 25, and if you measure their VO2, there's no change. You go, okay, what happened? Well, they became stronger. Well, how did they become stronger? Well, they trained harder. Well, how did they get trained? Were able to train harder? At the end of the day, you can't push your body physically unless you accept that discomfort or that sensation of that effort. And that, in and of itself, is an evolution of the human will. So we always say we reset the barometer of the human will. What is the human will? The spirit. So being able to accept this environment, the discomfort, the burn, whatever the heck you want to call it, being able to accept that is analogous to being able to accept many other realities in your life and not take it personal and not freak out and not sabotage the future and not make hasted decisions. A hasted decision here is, I can't do it and I don't finish the set. Nothing happens. But that same process, Here I have an emotion. I don't understand it, I'm quitting. That kills projects. That kills jobs. That kills communication between couples, between children and parents. That kills everything. So, that's what we're trying to get someone to learn. That whatever they do here, they're doing out there as well. So the big thing on the emotion is teach them, use the teachable moments of physical exertion, which is a gym and exercise, to teach spiritual lifelong lessons. If you just have it happen organically, they'll improve, but they will not improve anywhere near what they would improve if you do it deliberately. I think that's the difference between me coaching at 58 and some of the other young guys coaching. And they'll tell you that when I start coming in, the things I say, when I say it, how I say it, makes a big difference. And that comes from 58 years of this and a different level of awareness. And what I hope is that when young coaches learn about this, and we're coming up with a system. So you have this coachable, emotional component, but you also have the pharmacology. I mean, we have the biggest pharmacy inside this body. When we start moving, oof, things start happening in here hormonally. That's incredible. I mean, the best antidepressant medication that we have in here. We have opioid receptors. We have cannabis receptors. 2 receptors that we found out, the C1 and C2 cannabis receptors, which means we make our own marijuana. We make our own heroin, basically. And that happens a lot of times when you're doing this and you get excited. Bingo. What's exercise? Bam. So not only do you have the spiritual stuff, you have the chemical stuff too. That's why when everybody leaves, everybody feels better than they came. So you have 2 things: A, spiritual, and B, something that supports that, which is the chemical. We can take advantage of that. Do incredible things coaching athletes and just coaching people.
Awesome. Hey, when you said young coaches, you pointed to them, but not me.
Because they are the young coaches. You and I are the old birds here. Look at us and look at them. I mean, these are babies for crying out loud. Jeez, they're in their 20s. Their 20s, you don't even know your elbow from your axe. There you go. Not politically correct.
There's Unplugged. All right, guys, we appreciate you tuning in and watching. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. We'll see you soon.